Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we talk about HeatherAsh Amara's new book that has just come out, Wild, Willing, and Wise. And before we introduce Heather in a few minutes, I want to make a few comments. As I've been reflecting on the turbulence in US politics in relation to the planetary alignments, because along with most of you, I take astrology very, very seriously. I'm a very good friend of Rick Tarnas's, whose book Cosmos and Psyche traces back over the last 2,500 years the way different planetary alignments have influenced human behavior. The planetary alignment that I want to note today, which I think is still reverberating through the global system generally, but in US politics in particular, is the recent conjunction between Mars and Uranus. And conjunction, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, is when the Earth and Mars and Uranus are essentially in a straight line. And that kind of enhances the impact from Uranus and Mars onto planetary ecology and planetary human, as well as animal attitudes and behavior. As Rick Tarnas has indicated in his book, Cosmos and Psyche, in his view, with which I agree, astrological, stellar, and planetary alignments are not determinative. They are not fate. They are not destiny. They're archetypal energies, much like the moon, which we're all familiar with. At a full moon, crime rates rise, the sort of the bloodiness and the complications of operations rise in hospitals. People act in a loony way on a full moon. And although you can predict this statistically, you can't predict it individually. Free will is always operative in human affairs, and it interacts with, say, a full moon. It interacts with a conjunction of Mars and Uranus, but it's not predictive. But at a mass level, if you step back and look at it at a planetary level, like Rick Tarnas does, you can see the patterns repeating themselves in different manifestations over time. What's involved in Mars and Uranus conjunct? Mars is aggressive. Uranus is Promethean. It's a source of upheaval. So Mars and Uranus were conjunct right at the time that Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. And we had the Republican National Convention. So here you have an act of aggression and a complete upending of the US presidential election. Many people thought as soon as Trump survived the event and raised his fist in the air that the election was over. You know, there went the election. That's what I thought. I thought, whoa, there is no way that Biden can withstand what's going to happen to Trump and the Republican Party after this. And sure enough, Republican Party was in almost a hysteria of positivity and group unity and said over and over and over, God save Trump, so Trump could save America. Then what happened? Within a week, Biden fell. Trump was shot, and Biden died in a political, metaphoric sense of that term. Biden understood immediately, the Democratic leadership understood immediately that he could not in any way withstand what was going to now come at them from a rejuvenated, inspired, ecstatic Republican Party. And then what happened? All that energy that had been coursing through the system entered Kamala Harris. And all of a sudden, Kamala was inspired. And the Democrats were inspired. And the initial advantage to the Republicans now went to the Democrats. And that momentum, that Uranian energy, is still pulsing through the system. And what's coming up on August 8th is Lionsgate, that extraordinary time each year where the Earth and the star system Sirius are in a very, very dynamic alignment. And if you've heard Linda Tucker of the White Line Protection Trust in South Africa, the alignment and the role that the white lions play, the Sphinx in ancient Egypt, all aligned with Sirius. It's a huge lion-esque energy that will be pulsing through the planet. And if the momentum of Kamala Harris now sustains itself through August 8th and is inspired and animated even further by that, she will enter into the last 2 months of the election in an extremely powerful way. What I want to note by way of introducing our speaker today is that within 24 hours of Biden indicating that he was stepping down and endorsing Kamala Harris, 50,000 women, mostly women of color, came together on a single call and said that they were going to work around the clock for the election of Kamala Harris, because the Republicans have launched an unprecedented assault on the sovereignty of women over their own bodies around the abortion issue. Similarly, TikTok went wild with memes of Kamala being a brat, which is apparently this term that the Gen Zs use for being super cool. So what we see as the astrology and the planetary alignments unfold, we see how that energy is beginning to animate the election. And overarching all is the Pluto return. So that where Pluto was in July 4th, 1776, that's where it's going to be in November of 2024, right conjunct the election of the next president. So we have extraordinary energy. So on the one hand, that Plutonian pull toward destruction, dictatorship, tyranny, which is what Donald Trump represents, and this countervailing energy from Uranus and Lionsgate and other alignments between now and then that enable the energy to well up on the other side And I just have this intuition that this election will be determined largely by the women and by the youth. If we can keep them animated and all the women out there can work tirelessly for the first woman and the first woman of color to ever take the Oval Office of the United States of America, I think it will be an extraordinary transition and animation of the kind of values that founded the United States, with the important exception of slavery and the genocide against the native peoples. But as a constitutional republic, as a democratic society, the United States has been an important contribution to enlightened, people-centered, democratic countries for almost 250 years. So I will leave it at that. And if HeatherAsh, are you here? Georg, do we see HeatherAsh?
I have not heard from Heather. I can't see her anywhere. I don't know what's happening.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I will wing it then with everyone's permission until she shows up. We were in touch just over the last couple of days, so I'm not sure what happened. She's in Scotland, and so maybe the internet went out, or the time zones became a bit confused. So
Shannon is offering to step in.
okay, well, let me, I had some remarks prepared for tomorrow that I'll give today, and then maybe Shannon, I can bring you in, and maybe others later. But I wanted to note a couple of things. First, that as of tomorrow, we are going to be adjourning until September 4th. As a university, we typically take some time off in August, and this year is no exception. Our staff, Georg, Katie, Stan, Shannon, everybody works very, very hard, 5 days a week, essentially for the rest of the year, with the exception of basically between the last 2 weeks of December, when we also take time off. So I just wanted to note that, and I wanted to thank Stan and Shannon and Katie and Georg and others for extraordinary service to the cause of enabling humanity to rise. I'll be sending out probably an email or two during the month that we're gone, just to update people. We're already hard at work on the fall schedule. We're going to be launching in September with many of our academic partners and people that are really emerging as activist leaders in the UAP disclosure movement. And we have programs on peace, programs on all kinds of diverse issues as we move into the fall. And so I think we have an exciting fall program lining up very, very beautifully. We have more people than we can possibly accommodate. And that's one reason why we always have a full schedule, except, sometimes when, like today, where people are scheduled and for whatever sets of reasons that's not possible for them to join. The other issue that I wanted to comment on came out of a dinner and video that I've watched recently. Now, we had a dinner here in Washington with a donor and about a dozen people in the UAP disclosure movement. And then I mentioned yesterday when Danny Sheehan was talking and put the link in the chat, a recent session of Ross Coulthart with Michael Masters, a professor of biological anthropology at Montana Technical University, who is really both extremely well educated, but also at the complete cutting edge of UAP research and development. The general comment that I wanted to make, which will be going forward in more detail in the fall, is, that the current preoccupation of just about everybody over the last, really 80 years is, where's the hardware? Where are these retrieved craft? Who are these aliens? What do they look like? Where are the retrieved bodies? And given the fact that the United States in particular, which has been sort of in the epicenter of not only UFO, UAP cover-up, but UAP disclosure, governed as it is intellectually by the scientific reductionist paradigm that doesn't believe anything's real unless you can measure it and quantify it and qualify it in a test tube, has been focused on hardware, has been focused on what can be seen and measured in a concrete way. And if that's not true, nothing is true. However, as disclosure is unfolding, many aspects of this phenomenon are also coming to the light of day. And even in Washington, people are beginning to take in that disclosure is real, that the hardware exists, that aliens are here. And certain questions are now bubbling up that the hardware can't answer. And that is where it gets really interesting. Not only does it get interesting, but more and more people are coming into the conversation. And that's when it gets very exciting. There are now, I think, upwards of a dozen different categories for ETs. The one that Ross Coulthart and Michael Masters were talking about is what they call crypto-terrestrials. The awareness that's beginning to dawn on people that they've been here all along and that they've dug in and they maintain invisibility unless they want to show themselves. Now, this is a radical reformulation because most people think, if you think about the UFOs, most people are of the opinion, if they thought about it at all, well, these ETs, they came from Alpha Centauri or a star system here, and they came for a visit, and then they went back home, and all of a sudden, our spatial temporal categories, as I indicated yesterday, are being exploded temporally, because if they're here now, maybe they've been here all along. And if they've been here all along, maybe these stories, these ancient stories from the world religions, that in the primordial times, extraterrestrials came to the planet and actually modified human genes and chromosomes and created them, essentially, the modern humans, and enabled us to move from Homo erectus, more ape-like, to Homo sapiens, the full humans. And that we humans have been basically like I am and you are today for the last 250,000 years. And that's expanding our notion of human evolution and development. So that rather than primates, human, hunter-gatherers, primitive, thick-headed, me, Tarzan, you, Jane, kind of a mentality or view of our human past, we're beginning to take in that there are now archaeological findings that I indicated, a wheel, a kilometer underneath the ground in Ukraine, perfectly constructed wheel that dates from 3 million years ago. Wooden instruments that have been found in southern Africa that clearly fit together, fossilized by this point, that date from 500,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe, other sites that are dating now to 10, 12,000 years ago, and some sites even older. So all the categories of human identity are being exploded with this notion that these beings have been here for an exceedingly long time. And if you read some of the testimony of the experiencers, many of the ETs they talk to today say, oh yeah, we were here a couple 100,000 years ago and we animated your species, and we've come back to check on you because you're about ready to blow yourselves up through nuclear war and you're devastating the planetary ecology. So we've come back to warn and to assist you once again to make sure you stay on the right path. That's an extraordinary thing just to take in and think about. Another aspect that is beginning to emerge is the multidimensionality of the extraterrestrials, the non-human intelligences, as they're officially called. And the growing realization that they don't come here in crafts very much at all. They're coming from other dimensions. They're invisible most of the time. And they have a capacity to densify themselves so that they can be observed by humans. And they can take many different forms. They can be small grays, the little short ETs that you see in the Spielberg movies. They can be tall grays. They can look like grasshoppers, the so-called mantids, the reptilians that look like basically like crocodiles, reptiles. They can look like Nordic, like Swedes and Norwegians, very tall Nordics. They can come as animals. There's a whole body of experiencer testimony that they appear as owls. They appear as birds of all kinds. They can appear as animals. These are the totems that the primitive societies, the indigenous societies, who weren't primitive at all, they were much more sophisticated than we are, which is the reason why I use the term. What we considered primitive were actually more civilized than we are, because their worldview could encompass and honor as sacred that which we have marginalized as untrue. and are only willing to accept if we can really find a measurable spacecraft. The Western mind, in its arrogance and its ignorance, is demanding proof about these beings that is not ontologically who they are. If I'm in the invisible realm, not because I don't exist, but because I can't see them. Because the bandwidth, if you take the light spectrum, what humans can see is very, very narrow. If you take the audio spectrum, what humans can hear is very, very narrow. If you take electromagnetic spectrum, what humans can discern is very, very narrow, which doesn't mean they don't exist. Right now, through your room, through my room, through everybody listening to this, electromagnetic pulses, TV signals, radio signals, cell phone signals, photons from the sun are coursing all the time. They're completely real. We just can't see them. So imagine that the non-human intelligences are existing here all the time in a different reality and come into our domain occasionally and densify themselves in different forms and then communicate to selected people. A universal concern that humanity is on the brink of self-destruction and we need to transform who we think we are and our larger relationship with the overall ecology to an alignment with the complexity, the subtlety, the nuance reality in which we actually find ourselves. So as I've been taking all this in Washington, I'm realizing, as I indicated, my temporal spatial categories are exploding. And that we have to begin to realize that it's all true. All these possibilities coexist eternally all the time. And the only question we have is how can we open ourselves, or the aperture of our optics, the aperture of our hearing, the aperture of our extrasensory perception to be able to absorb what's been going on all along. And the only peoples that continuously interact with the star beings and honor the totems are the most civilized among us. And those are the indigenous, the original peoples who never lost touch and contact with the earth, with the ground, with Mother Nature, with Pachamama. So I wanted to, in some ways, summarize the last 6 to 9 months as we've been really exploring the UFO phenomenon. We've emphasized a lot of the facts and figures, politics, the history, because that's how the Western mind needs to become comfortable absorbing all this information. And that's important. That's very, very important. But we need to understand that this is only the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg. And our capacity to be open to this is the mark of our moral maturity to transform according to the new reality we're more and more beginning to experience. And within this context, the final thing that I wanted to share was what we're doing at the New Paradigm Institute and Ubiquity University, because it's very, very exciting. We're starting Citizens for Disclosure groups all over the United States and around the world. Katie Amara and I just got off a call with people from, I'd say, 15 countries around the world. We had a call just a few days ago with our Citizens for Disclosure, where we have now representatives in 41 states around the United States, all gearing up for a national campaign to make UAP disclosure an election issue nationally with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, but also locally and at the state-by-state level. We're having teach-ins like we did in the Vietnam War. And we've just confirmed our first teach-in at Yale University, September 27 to 28, coming up. We have lawyers working on whistleblower protection, as Danny Sheehan talked about yesterday. We have all kinds of citizen activity, the Citizens for Disclosure, the Disclosure Network around the world, etc. And I really wanted to invite all of us, not only to really those of you in the United States, particularly the young people and the women, to just work your hearts out, as we all must, for a progressive outcome in the November election. But to understand that we, the people, must also be similarly engaged in the disclosure movement. Because even though the ultimate gateway resides with the government, the pressure to do so resides with the citizens. And this leads me to the video that I sent out yesterday with Ross Coulthard. What is being asserted by some is that the ETs we're bearing witness to are actually future humans coming back along the timeline to make sure that at this critical juncture, when we can annihilate ourselves, we don't do so. And that's actually a comforting thought, if you think about it. If space-time is malleable, both between here and the speed of light and beyond the speed of light, as has now been discovered, and space and time are integral to one another, that means that not only spatially are we connected with all things, but temporally we're connected to the past, present, and future simultaneously. And in some way, mysterious way that we don't understand, people can come to us from the future into our present moment, animate our memories of the past in order for us to ensure, particularly at critical moments of choice, that we make it possible for them to exist. Because if we do not, the continuum of life is broken. And that's the ultimate tragedy for the species Homo sapiens. So those were some of the thoughts that I wanted to share with everyone. And I want to now, for the time that we have, next 20 minutes or so, open it up first to Shannon, and then those of you who are here. I'm just getting my participants here. And here's Barbara Esbern-Daughter. I'll let you in, but Shannon, I'll find Shannon here. And let Shannon have the floor here for a second. Oh, where's Shannon? I don't see Shannon in the list under the S's. Where did Shannon go? Well, while I find Shannon, oh, there we go. Allow to talk. Promote the panelists, and I'll promote you, Barbo. So if you, Shannon, why don't you make your comment, then we'll have Barbo.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. What a pleasure it is to see you well, I saw you face to face. I want to thank you so much for a wonderful season. And hello, everyone. It's lovely to not see you, but I know you're there. I want to express my disappointment that HeatherAsh didn't join us today. I got to meet her when I went to Teotihuacan and met Jim and, more than 70 other people that were involved in the pilgrimage this year. And now coming up, we have an event that Jim is participating in August, and that is Earthstock. When Michael DiMartino told me about this event that he was pulling together around the birthday of the first white buffalo calf 30 years ago, I got inspired. And it was really at the very beginning, so he hadn't a lot of things planned. And so I stepped in, I allowed my mouth to weave me into it. And what has happened is that I'm creating sparkling conversations between Humanity Rising presenters from the past and proposed to come together to talk about topics in alignment with the themes of the summit. And I wanted to let you know what they were so that you could come and play with us, because we're going to have 2 hours at Humanity Rising time. And then we're going to have an hour of afterglow. Because these are sparkling conversations, and you have afterglow after sparkling conversations. And so I wanted to tell you what the titles of the days are. On Monday, August 19th, on the theme of women and youth, it's going to be transformation of education for future generations. On Tuesday, the day that Jim is going to come and talk to us, old knowledge and new friends, because that's the day the white buffalo calf was born that presaged 500 years of peace. Well, we have to get there first. And then on Wednesday, it's getting along with others. Thursdays, it's getting along with Gaia. Friday, it's getting along with ourselves. Saturday is becoming a coherent universe. One song. And on Sunday is time and the nature of reality. I wish I could have Jim there for every one of those, because he has the ability to step into anything and shine so bright. And I am deeply grateful for this opportunity to invite you to come and be a part of Earthstock as well. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Shannon. And let's just take a moment, everybody, to just salute Shannon. Shannon has been a foundation, along with Stan, of Humanity Rising. Yeah, come on in, Stan. And let's just take just a moment just to send all kinds of love and good vibes and appreciation for, just some extraordinary individuals whose hearts are pure gold.
But Jim, it's because of you. You have created a stream of energy that we just ride along. You are so inspiring. a breath of fresh air and sunshine.
Well, thank you.
So much.
So we're going to allow Kathy to come in. I don't know what happened to Barbo. She seemed to.
Barbara, where'd you go?
She didn't raise her hand.
Oh yeah. So Kathy, why don't you ask to unmute?
I didn't mean to raise my hand, sorry.
Oh,
That's okay, Kathy.
But thank you
okay.
for all the beautiful days. I wake up every morning just excited to watch and learn. Oh my gosh, I've learned so much from you. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
81 years old, but I've gone back to college and I'm loving it this time through Humanity Rising.
Fantastic. Me too,
Yes.
Kathy. Me too. I learned so much. It's just extraordinary. It's like going to college again. You're
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
right.
That's what I tell everybody. I've gone back to college, but this time I'm loving it.
Well,
So
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Now we got Kurt. Let me get Kurt on.
Well, while you're bringing him on, Jim, I'm going to let you concentrate on that for a moment, because I really do want to shine a little bit more light on what you are involved with creating Humanity Rising. My mom 4 years ago had me bunking on her office sofa, her home office sofa, and I was there for 9 months. She got rid of me every morning because I was on Humanity Rising, and that was when you were doing it every day. I tell you, oh my gosh, I have changed. She told me the other day, you have to be careful, Shannon. You used to be able to talk to anybody, but you're using such big words now. I'm getting lost. It's like, oh no. Well, she may be over 90, but she is as smart as a tack. And I don't want to leave her behind. So I have to, she's my barometer, and I really appreciate her and all my elders. And it's wonderful to be in this environment. And Kurt, where are you, sir? Come on
I'm
in.
here, but I don't see any way to be able to be seen, so to speak.
Oh,
There
video.
should
At
be.
least I'm heard. I don't know if I'm heard very
Yeah,
well.
you're heard, Kurt. Go ahead. I have promoted you to panelist, so you should be able to or activate video. But anyway, go ahead and talk.
Kurt went away.
Okay, let's go with.
There he is.
There
There
we
he
go.
is.
There's Kurt.
Well, this is a blame game today, it looks like. I'm going to blame you, Jim, for all the things that have been happening in my life because I haven't stopped doing this every day. And because of this after chat that Stan started and Shannon presides over, well, we have the Peace Lab, and then we produced a number of programs for the Humanity Rising, and we're ready to do some more and so on. And then we started the Peacemakers Circles and Network, and the whole thing is just spreading around the world with all these events that are happening in Crestone or down in Tinzanitsa or wherever we're going. The biggest thing that I see is the most powerful thing, and that's going inside and being that change that we wish to see. Be that peace, that vibration that is so powerful. It changes the world. The morphogenic field theory has been proven, the 100th monkey effect, and so on. All these things are being proven so much that even hurricanes are adjusted through this meditative state and so on. So we get to spread this in such a way, like I did in prisons when I was teaching at Stockholm University to prison priests and the wardens, teaching them to teach meditation in prisons. And what happened? Their recidivism rate is at 20%, ours is at 80%. We punish, they rehabilitate. They, of course, do other things now that rehabilitate more, but this whole circle of airy-fairy people from the 60s and 70s and so on, are waking up so many people through yoga and meditation and all the different practices that we've spread. Like in Winning Ways for Living, this bestseller, it has 2 out of the 4 books that were bestsellers. It has Pythagoras' practice. Oh, and you have had programs on Pythagoras, the simple practice of before you go to sleep, write down what happened good today, write down what happened bad, tear up the bad stuff, throw it away, burn it, whatever you want to do. Don't burn it, it pollutes the air. And you then reread the good stuff and you write then what you get to do for the next day. When you write it down, you know what is going to happen the next day. What happens at night? It gestates in our subconscious, which then becomes conscious, which then becomes action, and everything the next day flows somehow so much better. We live in a tough life when we learn these simple practices.
Yep, totally.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You were there at creation and a stalwart participant ever since. So thank you so much. Jonathan.
Yes, thank you very, very much for your inspiration, leadership, and vision. I really am struck. I'm sitting out here in the Texas Hill Country. I'm watching the deer eat and the butterflies. It's quite beautiful out here. We got rain, but that's the point. The way that you have articulated where we're at in terms of, the astronomical, the political. I only have one caution. You use the word explosion. I think we should also add implosion. In other words, this return, there's going to be a yin yang to it. So explosion sounds a bit violent, but in a peaceful way, I hope. I know you mean it in a peaceful way. But what you've articulated, and I think perhaps as in terms of what's going on in the unconscious, I think there are two very key words. One is, as Kurt mentioned, is dreams. There's a lot of information coming back through the whole dream world. The second word is waters, the waters. And I know you're familiar with Veda Austin's work and what's going on there. So with those aquatic poetics, or something to that effect, I think might be. So my interest, and I did watch actually I've talked with Mike McMasters and his at the the Archives of the Impossible. And so there's really, I mean, you're right at that, but the concern now is what will be the method of transformation into this new reborn human species. As Thomas Berry is saying, we're at the point, our vision now is to reimagine, to recreate the humanity at a species level. So that's something I want to pursue into the fall. I'll probably be getting another PhD, even though I don't need one. I really appreciate what you and Danny have been doing and hope to pass through Washington this summer. I'm making a pilgrimage through the east to these different watering spots, Warm Springs, Virginia, headed up to Saratoga in October. Anyway, but I think, how do we, pardon?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think we need to, conserve and preserve and transform. And I think you've certainly set a template for that. And I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Well, I'm in the process of Veda Austin and I are in touch, and we've proposed, and she's accepted in principle, an academic partnership whereby people can take her courses and then bring those into Ubiquity to do a master's or PhD degree on water.
Yeah.
The intelligence of water.
Yeah, I've known Veda for quite a few years. We communicated. We just had a conversation on dreams and dreaming in water. So I'm very familiar with what she's doing, and we communicate regularly. What I'm interested to is in the sense of spa cultures. How can we use these watering holes as sacred spaces for people? Because the water holds not only individual memory experiences, but also like Murrieta Hot Springs or Glenwood. And we have this organization called Balnology. BANA, it's the Balnology Association of North America, bana.balnology.org. And again, we've been looking at what are the healing qualities of these sacred sites. So anyway, but yeah, we'll coordinate with that. But I think, we all need to bathe together.
Bathe with a friend.
That's part of the preparation, the purification in terms of preparation for the transformation is how do we, and water is the blood of the earth. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Jonathan. To be continued.
Yes.
Because
Safe travel.
We're working with Veda to do a 5-day program on Humanity Rising.
Oh, great. Super.
And she would just be sensational.
Yeah. She has a wonderful heart and wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
Those of you, Jonathan, just take a minute, because I think some people in the chat aren't familiar with Veda Austin. Just take a moment to describe who she is and the contribution that she's making, because this woman is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Veda Austin.
She discovered, well, other people had as well, but she was able to visualize and present the fact that one can embed intelligence, memory, and consciousness in water through a crystallography method in which she would put intention into water and then freeze it. And then in the freezing, in the way that the water itself would respond to what she intended. I mean, it was, in a sense, it was a ritual. It was a meditation, a prayer with water. And then the water itself would actually respond. And she has done this, I don't know how many tens of thousands of Petri dishes with frozen images, but it's like there's a way that you can communicate with nature through this process. I mean, it does take some time, and you have to be careful not to project all that, but it is quite therapeutic, but it is certainly transformative. There are other groups, worldinadrop.com out of Germany that have found similar things, the memory in water. But Veda has done it, and she just put out a new book, and she's actually doing a world tour and heading to Scotland and to Glastonbury in the next couple of weeks. But this is wonderful to hear that. Yeah, I think it will provide a method for focusing consciousness into water and then water responding. So it's really quite a meditative process. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot more. She herself had a near-death experience, and she will tell her whole story, which is quite a special. But she has this connection, and she's providing a method for the world to have a reverence. There's a sacredness in her whole approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Shannon and Kurt, I think we'll bring this to a close for now and maybe go into the after chat. Shannon, you wanted to say something?
I really do. Thank you so much, Jim, for giving me this space. I want to say thank you to Jay Paul for bringing Veda Austin up and clearly explaining who she is. What I want to bring in is the magic in ordinary moments mom, who gave me the name Sunlight Sparkling on the Waters, that has inspired the sparkling conversations. And it's such an emergent time. And in this emergent time, we need to step forward, dive in to the waters of life that will surround and uplift us all as we are going into this new time through this Lion's Gate. And it is, yes, we are standing on the tip of the iceberg. And the whoosh is going to take us all through the portal that is inside each one of us, the eye of the hourglass that goes both ways. And it is the mythologies the stories that we tell ourselves that allow us to get past the boundaries. And so I urge you to play in your imagination and play in each other's imagination, to seek to find the new common ground where we can all put our roots and create the world that works for everyone.
Beautiful. Nice closing statement. That'll bring us to a close, everyone. I'll join the after chat for a little bit, those of you who want to continue this dialogue. And you'll see the link in the chat box.
I'll give everybody the zooming peace, if you don't mind, the peace salute. Some people haven't seen this unless they've been in the after chat. And this is looking at the world as it really is. It is all just love, because what can God create? God is perfect. Everything is perfect. And so we get to see that, and we get to say, zoom peace. And what happens? We throw the love out to the world. Zoom peace is throwing the love out to the world. And what does love create? Peace in everything. Everything has peace. Thank you. See you in the after chat.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.